Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Hello and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today I have a very, very special guest, and her name is Lara Heimann, and I hope I'm saying this right.
Lara Heimann, yes, you are.
Lara Heimann, all right, well, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Lara has got an expertise in a topic that many of you will find familiar, interesting, and she works with yoga. And particularly, you've got a theory, a concept about yoga as involved with relieving pain, and you've even sort of created a system. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? How are you doing, Lara?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Joe. So my name is Lara Heimann. I am a physical therapist and yoga teacher and have been doing both of those for almost 3 decades. And after kind of keeping them on parallel tracks, I was noticing that the beautiful, wonderful parts of yoga that I loved teaching and practicing, and also witnessed other people teaching and practicing, had some gaps in terms of education and understanding about biomechanics of the body in the ways that we look at it through the lens of a physical therapist. And I thought, well, why don't I bring some more of my physical therapy knowledge into this and teach people, just like I would be teaching a client who comes in and has low back pain, and teaching them biomechanics, teaching them about balancing out the different tissues that can pull on the joints, and teaching about breathing. Very similar. So making more of the opportunity of the yoga practice and also an educational opportunity, so that you can really truly understand your body, feel more at home in your body, and then take that into your life. And so I started doing that and created a methodology so that each time you come into a practice, you have this place where you can reset, kind of have a reset button, reestablish not only connection to your body, but the understanding of like what a neutral spine is, what a neutral pelvis is, why that's important in functional movement, and how that keeps not only the tissues and joints healthy, but it holds onto your energy more, because when you are biomechanically moving and more optimally, you're also holding on and expanding your energy. And who doesn't want that? So I've done that now. I had a studio for 10 years. I have an online platform that teaches that. And it really is saying, like, wherever you are, with whatever knowledge you may or may not have, you can find the place here, and we will just enhance that knowledge so that you feel empowered. It's kind of the opposite of our modern medical model, where you wait for something to go wrong, and then you're like, I got to get on the phone with my doctor and go see somebody. There's a lot of just anxiety about that, because when you feel something uncomfortable, you don't know what's going on, because we haven't been taught about our body. And certainly the musculoskeletal system is an easy one to teach, so that you can feel like you have that knowledge and power, and that you don't have to kind of freak out every time something doesn't feel right or uncomfortable, and that you have more of an idea of how to take care of yourself.
I love it. And as we get older, I mean, you don't look it, but if you've been doing something for 30 years, I think, you got some time in, as I do. And as we get older, you start feeling different things than you used to feel, and it takes longer to get better than you used to get better. And you hear pops and strange noises that you never used to hear. And maybe to understand the nature of some of these things would, I don't know. Like you said, there's such anxiety, I think, about the quote healthcare system. And I think I have other words for it than that. But it's interesting because recently we've had a lot of guests that have come on the show that are sort of hybrid practitioners. We had a physician that came on, and that was a gastroenterologist, whatever. He was a GI doctor, and he had sort of hybrided his practice into some psychiatry sort of things and finding out root causes. And, yoga, we have a lot of listeners that fancy yoga, even yoga instructors, and it's such it's an ancient practice, and people connect themselves to the oldness of it and just sort of succumb to whatever you're being told. And yet at the other side of it, you're doing actual motions that actually affect actual systems in your body.
Exactly.
Imagine that. Let's learn about it. I love it.
Yeah. And yoga, why I think people fall in love with it is it uniquely asks you to tune in and not tune out, right? So sometimes when we exercise, we try and tune out. We just want to, and this is like a practice, and mostly in Western world, it is more of a movement practice, but whatever form it is asking you to tune in and to listen and tune in, you need to have like a little bit more understanding. So you're tuning in, but like it's, for instance, you were talking about with aging, things like, we start to be more aware. Well, what I tell people is we're probably, our body is speaking to us more now, but it's been giving those signals all along.
Right.
It just had the practice of us not responding to those signals for more years, right? So there's more, it's the habits. So a lot of what I do, because my postgraduate specialization is in neuroplasticity and understanding the brain body connection, and it's a lot about really just rewiring some of the programming, whether it's the way we move, the way we breathe, but also the way we think. The way we think about aging is like we're going to become decrepit, and this even the doctors, like you go to a doctor and they're like, I can't tell you the number of clients that have said to me, yeah, my doctor said, well, you are over 40. So, right. I'm like, what a horrible response. Like, I mean, that's just reinforcing this concept that, yeah, there's not much you can do about it. You're going to get old, shaky, and it's not going to feel great. And, I'm 55, and I feel like in a lot of ways I'm moving as well, if not better than I was in my 30s. And I've always been active, but I've been able to practice these, these concepts more over and over again so that they have become more encoded. And that's really what I teach. And I've had people with me for almost as long as well. And they're just like, I don't know what I would do without this. And it's like, they don't say, I don't know what I'd do without you. Right. That's they can't rely on me. Like that's another thing that I noticed sometimes in the yoga world was this very much like there's a sage on the stage. They're telling you how, and I never was comfortable with that at all. And I don't think that's a good way of learning. I think, we're in this participation of life together. And what I have that might be different is I have more knowledge about this, but I'm sharing it, no gatekeeping. And I truly believe anyone, even if they don't feel like they're interested in learning about the body, will find it fascinating and in fact be really excited about it.
So physically, where are you where your studio is and all of this?
So as of now, I lived in Princeton, New Jersey for 28 years. Right after grad school, I moved to New Jersey, raised my family there, and I started a studio there, and I had that right up until COVID. But before COVID even hit, a year before that, I had been traveling around the world doing international retreats and workshops, and people had asked, can you please do something online so I can take with you more often? So I created an online platform in 2019. I created online training in 2020. Well, it launched in 2020. I created it to launch in January of 2020. So I had both of these things going in, plus the brick and mortar. The brick and mortar because of COVID, and I was in my last year of the lease, shut down. And then the online just really showed me like how much more impact I can have because there's no barriers to entry, And so right now I don't have like a physical studio. My primary home is in Massachusetts now, but I'm out on the West Coast in the winter. So I kind of have,
no dummy here, right?
yeah, I'm not back in the 5 degrees right now. So so it's given me a lot of freedom. And that's the whole, I think what all of this does is we want to feel freedom is giving us our ability to have choices.
Right.
We can have choices on like what we do and how we live, like it all is integrated in how we feel and how much energy we have.
So when you're doing an online course, is that how you have it set up as a course, or you just have sessions?
We have online classes. So we have an online platform with over 1,000 classes. You can go into the library as a beginner, and there's all these kind of roadmaps of where to start, and you can go in as a more seasoned practitioner and try things out. There is a methodology to it, so it's nice to kind of take some of the like foundational classes just to understand, like each class has a pathway, because again, we come into a yoga practice with our existing habits. And so giving the time to kind of reestablish and reconnect to, like I was saying, developmentally, we do a lot of things on the floor to begin with, because that's where you get a lot more feedback, a lot more support to your center of mass, which is your pelvis. And then you can take that into bigger functional movements. But if you just come in like from wherever you are, you're usually just going to move and compensate a little bit. So that's why the format's really good. We also have online studio within that as an option. There's 2 options for membership, and some people, like I taught this morning, there's people on Zoom from, there's like 6 different countries this morning.
Nice.
In addition to the US. So that's just the online platform for anybody who's interested in trying. We have a free trial. It's called the LYT Daily. LYT is the name of the brand. It actually stands for Lara's yoga technique, but it really is the kind of onomatopoeia of just wanting to feel more lit up in your life, more
I
alive.
love it.
Yeah.
I love a good acronym.
Yeah, I know. It works out well. Well, medical people like myself, we always love these acronyms. So
Right.
yeah. So yeah, and then we have the online teacher training, and that's for people who really want to deep dive more into the understanding and perhaps teach.
So I have, experience with a lot of different practitioners over many years, and, it's such a varied spectrum of humanity when you think about it, from doctors to, plant medicine practitioners to practice Ayurvedic. I mean, it goes through this gigantic um, spectrum of ancient practices that don't even have a written record of where they came from, all the way to the latest modern scientific discoveries. And there's this wide spectrum of how people learn and teach and seek information and distribute information. It's changed into this, like it used to be, there was a way, right? And you
Yeah.
found a
Yeah.
master and you trained and apprenticed, and that was it. You learned what they taught you, and then you became your own master. And now information comes from all over the world, from all over the time span, and it's up to you to sort of sort it out, figure it out. I suppose you probably have a wide range of people that approach you for the first time, from maybe somebody who just was searching for yoga and popped up into that, all the way to instructors that have come aware of your layered approach to this and are looking, for these deeper layers. How do you sort through it all?
That's our biggest problem as a brand, is like who to speak to, because I ultimately want to speak to everyone. I want everyone to feel this, to feel more at home in their body. That's the goal, because when you feel more at home in your body, your body is housing your nervous system. It's housing all the operations that are within. It's housing your emotional and mental state. And so it's a great vehicle through which you can start to change and improve the relationships with those other things. And so I really, anyone who wants to improve that, whether they are, like, I've worked with professional athletes all the way to people who are very, their mobility is very impacted. I used to work primarily with people that had neurological injuries. And so it's really enhancing your experience where you are, and also kind of, again, reframing this idea of pain and relationship to pain and energy. And, like you were saying, like physical therapy is also limited. So I found yoga had its limitations, PT had its limitations, and I kind of wanted to bridge the gap and bring the best of both disciplines together, because PT will very much, because of this modern medical model, kind of compartmentalize you. It'll look at, research, but at the end of the day, it's like, most pain that we experience, unless it's been an acute trauma, is not always musculoskeletal.
Right.
Right. And that's really
All here.
right. And that's, there's so like when I work with people who I just listen to what they say, and what I want to, by not directly telling them, I just want to encourage them to start to have a different approach and a different mindset. We are kind of programmed in a way to look at things with limitations, and it might be like, well, I'm 55. Well,
But
I've had this, right. I've had this low back thing ever since I was in my 20s. And it's like, well, you're just carrying a nice story along with you, but your low back is fine. Trust me.
right.
And that's, that's where it's very fascinating to see, like, people with musculoskeletal injuries to the spine. Many of them don't have pain, and people that have pain might not even have a musculoskeletal injury. But
Right.
it's all about that faulty wiring, and that comes along with the nervous system, that comes along with the habits, the movement habits that reinforce it. And so I think wherever people are, even if they don't know we're doing this, it's not like I'm like doing some witchcraft, but even if they don't realize it, they're improving that. I've had so many people who've said, I never thought I could do that because I would always be very careful about putting my knee on the ground when I was,
Right.
and I was like, well, you should be able to do that. And the reason why is because if your pelvis is in a balanced position, you're not putting all that load down on your patella, which wouldn't feel good
Yeah.
for anybody. But sometimes they get into it, and then they remember, like, oh, I didn't think I could do that. And those are the wonderful little just illuminations for people, because if they can raise the bar for themselves on what they can do, it blossoms into every aspect. I mean, I've had people that have gone back to medical school or changed jobs or left a bad relationship, and it's not like, again, it's all that they had more of this empowerment and this curiosity and this and realization, like there is more out there than I'm allowing myself to really embody.
So, out of all the years of working with all these different people, I'm sure you have a few cases that stand out as just like, wow, what a remarkable transformation or a breakthrough of some sort. Well, you want to share just just a case that was just so remarkable that you just use as a guidepost?
Oh yeah, well, this one, I mean, this always is like, just brings me such joy. I was working with a woman who happens to be my age, and super, super successful, had been always very, very athletic, almost like that kind of punishing, like, I'm going to run every day. I do. And it was like the to-do list thing. And she called me up and she said, I've been having pain in my foot. I don't know where it's come from. I've seen all these people. And then it just kind of over the next few months continued to where she had pain in her legs, pain in her hands. And this is what is known as chronic regional pain syndrome, where there's pain in your extremities for no apparent reason. It gives the pain doctors a lot of business. It is devastating because your entire nervous system starts to focus on that. And, she literally was like, I don't think I can continue with my life like this. Like, it's, she couldn't work the same amount. And I just started, we worked together every day, and I would say, you're okay. You're okay. You have been running on this treadmill of life. We don't even need to know what you've been trying to run from or whatever, but it's just like your body sometimes is like, slap in the face, stop and deal
Right.
with this. Deal with
Sometimes you just get a wake-up call. Your body's like, I'm done.
totally.
You just stop for a minute. Boom,
Right.
I give you whatever.
Exactly. It's like, just stop,
Yeah.
slow down. And she, went from this, like, I just feel like I'm at death's door, to she's just a different person now too. And so with that, we were just moving in a way to introduce and like kind of fall in love with movement in her body, as
Nice.
opposed to use it as this mechanism of running, energetically and emotionally. And there was just a lot of stuff in her history that had just not been dealt with because she didn't have the tools or the support at the time. and was just carrying it. And that can happen a lot with these type of unexplained pains. Even low back, we know, is hugely related to emotional pain. So sometimes it's like, that is actually, to me, like, give me that over somebody that has an ACL and they want me to work.
Oh,
Like, that's
100%.
right. I mean, that's
You get a miracle real easy that way.
anybody could do that. Like, go and
Right.
work. But what I like to do is really just help people embrace themselves, through this relationship with their body and with movement.
So, I mean, and I'm gonna way overgeneralize this because there's obviously so much nuance to it, but there's kind of two kinds of pain, right? You have the pain that you're just talking about, where your body is just sending you a message or dealing with some emotional or trauma or whatever your baggage is. And that's sort of the opposite, because real pain, if you will, is actually your body protecting itself and say, don't go there. It's hurt. You're going to really hurt it. Don't do it. And so in your mind and actually what you feel, there's no difference between these two pains.
Right.
And so, and it either can be excruciating, either can be just a gentle reminder. When somebody comes to you, especially virtually, like, how do you walk through that?
I just had that last week. I've had someone for over a year I've been working with, and a lot of when we'll speak, a lot of it is like, well, this is starting to bother me, and when I do this, and first of all, I know, like, I there's certain types of personalities, and like, we're born the way we are. I have two kids and they're totally different, right? And one, if you're listening, if you know you're a more anxious type, that's fine. That's the way you're born, right? Like,
Right.
but recognize, like, not everything is as you are narrating it to be, right?
Right. You might be adding a little extra sauce.
Right. So it's like, so for instance, if I'm sitting here for 2 hours, I'm going to start to feel some discomfort in my upper back. I'm not immediately like, oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I do? I just know, like, oh, I better move. My body's just saying, hey, move around a little bit, get some blood flowing, change positions. And so it's changing, like, the relationship of those messages too. So like, what I said to her is like, okay, don't focus on your shoulder. It's going to be fine, right? Like, right now, you're like, let's get more, she does need more stability. And this happens a lot in the yoga world with people who do have natural more mobility. And that comes from a lot of different reasons. It can come from true laxity. It can come from nervous system kind of delays. It's not people, like you're saying, people will give you the body will give you a signal, like, don't go to that in range. Well, some of these people don't get those signals. So they need more stability. They need but they love the mobility because they can do it, right? So it's
Right.
like, so I just have to say, like, this is what you need. If you don't want to feel that, it could be related to the fact your body is saying, like, give me more, hold me more, give me more strength, hold me into center. And that means that's where you're going to have to go. And it might not be the fun work, but it's going to be the very, very necessary work. So when I'm working with somebody virtually, I listen to what they say. I listen to their goals, because there's usually some reason they're coming to me.
Right.
And then I guide them based on what I'm seeing, watching them. I'm watching the way they talk. I'm watching their posture. I'm watching, the way they're holding themselves from a nerve. Like, you can see a lot when you've seen thousands of bodies, right? And so some of it is like, just that same approach. Let's feel at home in the body. How do I help this person feel more at home? Well, first off, don't interpret every signal that you are getting as an attack. It's not. Right. So just be like, okay, when that happens, I'm fine. And what are some things that you can do to help you feel like that I'm fine? And I'm not saying that as like, oh, I'm fine. And, like, I know that can be a cover for people. No, I'm talking about people who are hyper focusing, and then that just gets them. And because guess what? Your brain is going to let you, like, it's going to go into that track, and we just need to a new track.
Absolutely. So we're getting low on time. I want to get to a couple more questions, and then of course give you a chance to pitch yourself. it seems like you've unlocked something really cool in the sense of, it's just sitting right there. You're adding a layer of understanding and mindfulness and awareness to it. I've had massage therapists, before who just, talk to you about whatever and keep you distracted, and others that will actually, tell you what they're doing. I'm about to separate your layers of muscle here. You better relax or it's going to hurt. And then while they're doing it, they're explaining what they're doing, and you're like, oh, okay, I can see, or preparing for some kind of an adjustment or whatnot, and actually, explaining to you what you're doing. For me, I found it, hugely helpful for me to go, okay, why am I putting up with this, or why am I putting myself through this? Oh, okay. And I can understand, how I feel now and an hour from now and a day from now. And sometimes the effects don't happen right away. Um, and, you're dealing with more and more instructors, I would imagine, as your name and reputation and this program that you put together is getting out there. Um, you know, what do you think that the new instructors that are coming to you, like what's their concerns or their responses to, your coursework that you're putting out?
Well, we've had almost 1,000 people do the online training across the world. I think we have over 60 countries, and everyone that has found it, that has already been an existing instructor, has come because they fell in love with yoga. They wanted to teach it, and that at a certain point didn't feel like they had the tools. They start to feel like somebody, and the tools meaning you've got 20 people in a room, that's 20 different experiences, that's 20
Right.
different bodies, that's 20 different lifestyles. And it is, how can you create a class and verbalize cue to a class that is going to truly be accessible and welcoming? And you can't do that very well if you don't have some foundational understanding about the body. And
Right.
they crave it. And unlike many other programs or schools, yoga teacher training has one accrediting board, a monopoly, one accrediting board.
I didn't know that.
And while it has improved over the years, there was a huge boom of yoga teacher trainings and no oversight. So a lot of people go through that,
What
right?
could go wrong?
Right. What could go wrong? Exactly. And it's like they're teaching about movement, which requires your body, and yet they have no training about the body, the
Wow.
functional, biomechanics. You don't have to know like the names of muscles. I could care less about that. But like
Right.
in this position with the impact of gravity, like basic physics, like what
Right.
needs to happen.
These are just natural laws applying here,
And that's really what I do is I say, hey, I'm teaching the muscles in relationship to this. It's not important that you're like, oh my gosh, that serratus isn't working. No, it's like, why wouldn't the serratus be working? Because you're not optimizing the alignment so that it can do its job, which is to stabilize the scapula onto the rib cage, a very important feature of our shoulder.
Right.
People listening might not realize your shoulder is not right here. This is part of your shoulder, but the most important part of your shoulder is your scapula, your shoulder blade, which is on the back ribs. We don't see it. It's the most important part of your shoulder. Where you feel discomfort is almost always in the glenohumeral joint, which is the ball of the shoulder. And that's because this back here is not doing a good job anchoring dynamically. And so just teach, like I could say those words to people who walk in a room and they're going to be like, whoa, what?
I get it.
Right. And so often teachers haven't gotten that. So that's really what I'm doing. The whole reason I even kind of started this whole thing was I felt a huge compassion and I wanted to be the cheerleader for the teachers who love yoga and most of them were not given any of the tools that they needed to be really successful, other than being like, just kind of regurgitating things or calling out stuff. Like at a certain point, that's not very satisfying.
Right.
You really teach, you educate.
You want to connect. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's really what and then so we have teachers and then they have students and it's just, again, it's like, if you're a student of life, you should be a student of lit, because that just means you want to know more. about how you can better take care of yourself.
I love it. I love it. Well, knowledge is power. And, that's what we're all, the whole idea of this podcast and this community is all about sharing our experiences and learning. There's always more to know. I mean, I've been working with
Always.
Earth for my whole life and I haven't even touched the surface, and it's like all of life is that way. Lara, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I really like where you've come. And if somebody wants to connect with you, whether they're a teacher or just even considering dabbling in yoga, tell us how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, so the best way is just go to the website. It's LYT Yoga, LYT, lityoga.com. And that has everything on there. It has the teacher training info, that has the connection to our online platform. I have a podcast right now. I'm a little bit on hiatus. I've done 750 episodes, so I feel
Oh,
like I deserve a little hiatus, but there's tons of information. We do
nice.
a lot of Q&As in there. And then on Instagram, you can hit me up at Lara, Lara .Heimann, and just send me a message. If you have any question about anything, even if you don't want to try LYT, I love just engaging and talking to people and meeting people there as well.
Well, fantastic. It's been a pleasure, Laura, and this has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. Thank you for all of your support, and we will see you next time.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.